All right, welcome class. Let's start with a really fundamental question. What makes literature, well, literary? What separates a poem from a grocery list, or a great novel from a car's instruction manual? The answer, it turns out, is all about how language is used. And today, we're going to learn how to see it with totally new eyes.
Okay, let's look at a super clear example to see what I mean. Over on the left, you've got practical language. The moon is the Earth's only natural satellite. It's simple, it's direct, its job is to give you information. But then look at the right. The poetic language takes that exact same object and just completely transforms it. It doesn't just inform you, it creates an image, a mood, a feeling. It makes the familiar moon seem strange and new and exciting.
So how do we even begin to unpack that powerful difference? Well, we need a special set of tools. We need a way to look at a text and analyze not why the author wrote it. We're not so interested in their biography or what was happening in history. We want to know how the text itself creates its effect. And that toolkit, that's what we call formalism.
I want you to think of a piece of literature like an intricate machine. A formalist isn't concerned with the inventor's life story or the factory where the machine was built. Nope. They pop the hood and ask, how do these gears work? How do the grammar, the rhythm, the imagery, how do all these parts fit together to create this feeling of joy or suspense or sadness? We're focusing completely on the text as its own self-contained world. Okay, so if you want to think like a formalist, there are a few core ideas you've got to get on board with. First, the idea that we can analyze literature methodically, almost like it's a science. Second, our whole goal is to hunt for this thing called literariness, that special quality, that spark that makes a poem different from a memo. And maybe most important of all is this idea that form is meaning. A sonnet isn't just a convenient box for 14 lines of thought. Its strict rhyme scheme and structure are a huge part of the message itself.
Now this is where it gets really cool. One of formalism's most powerful ideas comes from a Russian critic named Viktor Shklovsky. He's the one who gave a name to what that poet was doing with the moon. He called it defamiliarization.
You know how we all kind of go through our days on autopilot, right? We see clouds, we see the moon, but we don't really see them anymore. Our brain just files them away. Defamiliarization is art's way of shaking us awake. It describes something ordinary in such a new, startling way that it forces us to slam the brakes on our automatic thinking and actually see the world again, maybe like we're seeing it for the very first time.
So here's how it works, step by step. You start with something totally ordinary. Clouds. We all have a mental shortcut for what that is. Then, bam, poetic language comes in and disrupts that shortcut. And what you're left with is something extraordinary. Suddenly, clouds aren't just water vapor, they're a playground for angels. Our perception has been totally rewired. Okay, so if defamiliarization is about making the familiar strange, there's another key formalist tool that looks at how authors create meaning by smashing two contradictory ideas together. This is what the great critic Cleanth Brooks called the language of paradox.
So what Brooks was really getting at here is that poetry gets its power from tension. It's not afraid to take two ideas that seem to completely cancel each other out, like loss and strength or beauty and truth, and it shows how they can both exist at the very same time. And in doing that, it reveals a deeper truth about the world that plain, logical language just can't touch.
Let's look at a concrete example. Here's a famous bit from William Wordsworth. He's writing about losing the magic of childhood, which is obviously painful. So the expected reaction here is just pure grief, right? But that's not what happens. Instead, Wordsworth flips the script. He creates this beautiful paradox. He totally acknowledges this huge loss, but it doesn't lead him to despair. Instead, that very loss becomes the source of a brand new kind of strength, a strength found in memory and wisdom. The deeper truth is that you can find renewal right in the middle of grief. All right, how about this one? This is a super famous line from John Keats. And right away, it should make you scratch your head a little, right? I mean, how can an aesthetic experience like beauty be the same thing as an intellectual idea like truth?
And that's the paradox. Keats just smashes these two ideas together. He's making a really bold claim. In the world of art, the profound emotional experience you get from beauty is its own kind of essential truth. It's a truth that goes beyond simple logic and speaks right to our human experience.
Okay, for our last example of paradox, we've got maybe one of the most mind-bending questions ever asked in English poetry. This is from William Blake's The Tiger. I mean, think about it. The paradox here is just staggering. How can the same being, the same creator, make both the sweet, innocent lamb and the terrifying, ferocious tiger? This question forces us to throw out our simple ideas about God. The deeper truth the paradox reveals is that the divine is huge and complex enough to contain both gentleness and violence, innocence and wrath.
Okay, so what? What's the big takeaway from all this? Why should you even care about stuff like defamiliarization and paradox the next time you pick up a book?
Because formalism changes everything about how you read. It turns reading from this passive thing you do into an active hunt for discovery. You move past just asking, what's the story about? And you start asking, how did the author create that feeling in me? You start to see the deliberate choices an author makes, the controlled violence, you could say, they use against ordinary language to shock it into creating something powerful and new.
Honestly, reading with a formalist's eye is like becoming a detective. You're not just reading the story, you're looking for clues in the sentence structure, in the word choice, in the rhythm. You start uncovering these incredible layers of meaning you never would have seen before. So the real question isn't what formalism is, it's what new worlds it's going to open up for you. Where are you going to start looking?